Hello and welcome. I'm Kenzie.
And I'm Carly, and this is Ask a Therapist.
Each week, we explore life's most relatable questions, from relationships and boundaries to burnout and self-worth, all through a therapist's lens.
We're licensed therapists, but this isn't therapy. It's a place for insight, reflection, and a little humor along the way.
Your questions,
our insights.
Ask a Therapist. This podcast is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. The content shared should not be considered a substitute for professional mental health care, diagnosis, or treatment. We strongly encourage listeners to seek help from a licensed mental health professional for any personal or psychological concerns.
Any advice or commentary offered is based solely on the information provided. As such, we cannot guarantee any specific outcomes, and the feedback given should not be interpreted as professional mental health advice. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please call 911, 988, or 211.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Ask a Therapist. This is episode 28. This week, we have a letter from a listener who is experiencing perimenopause symptoms. This might be something you've heard recently, but as it's mentioned in this letter, there's still so much uncertainty around it. So we're looking forward to diving into it today. We want to share a quick reminder that while our questions are specific to listener submissions, the insight and responses we share are meant to be supportive and applicable to anyone who might be listening. We're excited to explore this with you all, so let's get started.
Yes,
Carly,
I
how
am
are you?
doing well today. I'm excited to talk about this. There's transparency, a little bit of overlap with some of my experiences. So I'm interested to, talk a little bit about that. But before we get started, you mentioned something kind of in passing that I had not heard about. And so I was just curious about it. You mentioned using, I think you called it Marco Polo with friends or something. Please, share a little bit about what that is and how you use it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not a paid advertisement, but if Marco Polo would like to sponsor us, that would be great. But yeah, Marco Polo, I was talking about how I was keeping up with friends and doing a lot of Marco Polos this week. I was talking to Carly about that. So it is an app. It's called Marco Polo, and you send video messages to each other. And so I have friends. I have one friend that lives in Hawaii. I have another friend that lives in Colorado. I have another friend that lives in Michigan, another one in Virginia. And so we're all kind of over the place, and there's different time zones and everything too. So scheduling a FaceTime or time to catch up can be difficult. And so we use this app to keep in touch with each other. And so we will send life updates, here's what's going on. We'll respond to each other's messages. And it's basically sometimes it's there'll be a week or two in between responses, but once a week, we kind of all just send updates to each other, keep each other updated in our lives. Two of my girlfriends, we started it. And this was probably, I'm trying to think, probably close to 5-ish years ago. We've been doing it for 5 years, and they live so far and we only get to see each other once a year. But it feels like we're constantly just in the loop of each other's lives and keeping up with each other. So it's a really fun way to keep in touch. I listen to it on my walks and we'll respond to them. It's this morning I was getting ready and cleaning up a little bit around the house, and I had it playing. I was this is my show that I watch. It's just all my friends and their updates and what's going on. So I highly recommend, if you have friends that are in different areas that you can't connect with as easily, it's been so great for my friends and I, and just staying up to date in each other's lives.
That makes a lot of sense, because I can heart relate to just trying to find a time that works to catch up can be so hard. I have literally put friendship conversations just on my calendar as if it was an appointment, just so that we could have time to catch up. You know what I mean? Because life gets so busy. And for me, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. So I very much like the idea of being able to at your leisure, get back to it. I kind of do that with voice notes. I'm I'm going to send this because you can listen to it whenever you want, and you can get back to me whenever is convenient for you. But the idea of adding the video component so that it feels a little more personal, I like that. That. Now, it's all everybody's in the group, so can everybody see all of the updates, or is it more of a one-on-one thing?
No, it's everybody can see it. So I have 2 different groups, and there's 3 of us in these groups. And so
Gotcha.
Usually we rotate. My friend Corey will send a video, then Gabby will send a video, then I'll send a video, or same with my other group. It'll be Claire, Kaylin, and then me, and so it's and then, like, you know, sometimes people will go out of order, but usually it's kind of like once Gabby responds, then I'll go listen to both, and then I'll send my response so that, you know, it can all be kind of like, "Okay, we're up to date on everything." But yeah,
Got
everybody can
it.
see
Okay,
everything.
I like it. New ways to like stay connected, still prioritize your friendships even when you've got
Yeah,
busy schedules. And you've got friends in some cool places. Like, going to visit your friend in Hawaii, I would
I
be like,
know.
I am definitely coming. Like,
Did go visit her, and it was amazing. Like, I should go back. I think she's gonna be there
okay.
for another year, so I'm kinda like, "Ugh, I probably should try to get back before she moves back to Virginia." It's beautiful. Like, it was just stunning. So, she's living such a cool life. She's got some fun updates. She's, like, always at the beach on her videos. I'm like, "Oh,
I'm with
so
you on
nice."
that. I've been to Maui and it almost sucked me in. Like I was there with my husband and we were like
Yeah.
really thinking like, how can we stay? If we didn't have my daughter at the time, we might not have come back. Like I know exactly what you mean. The beaches are beautiful and they're free and the weather is beautiful. And it's like, I could kind of live here and just do anything or do nothing. Like I could just be on the beach all day
Yeah.
and that would be, wonderful. Expensive place, but very, very nice. Yeah.
It is, yeah, it is. I know, yep, it's they're the trade-offs for sure, but I get it. I definitely was contemplating, and you know what? That flight is really, really long, so I also was like, "Let me just stay here a little
Really?
bit
See,
longer."
now long flights for me are not a problem. I sleep through flights like they're nothing.
Really?
I mean, I think we had 8 hours and I don't even know that
Really?
I got up to use the restroom once. Like I eat flights.
That's a skill, that's amazing.
At Carly King Therapy, you don't have to navigate life alone. I'm Carly King, a licensed marriage and family therapist, helping individuals, couples, and families work through anxiety, depression, and relationship challenges with compassion and clarity. Using proven approaches like narrative therapy, emotionally focused therapy, and the Gottman method, I help you better understand your story, strengthen your connections, and create lasting, meaningful change. Whether you're facing a difficult transition, working to repair your relationship, or simply wanting to feel more like yourself again, support is closer than you think. With convenient virtual sessions, you can connect from wherever you are. I'm licensed in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Florida and accept select insurances. Visit Carly King Therapy, that's EARLIKING therapy.com to schedule your free consultation. Carly King Therapy, support that meets you where you are. All right, let's jump into this week's question. It says, "Hi, ladies. I'm writing because I feel like I'm slowly becoming a different version of myself, and I can't tell whether what I'm experiencing is normal, burnout, aging, hormones, or something else entirely. I'm 43 and have been generally healthy most of my life. However, over the past year or two, things have begun to shift in ways that are hard to explain and even harder to talk about without sounding dramatic. My moods feel less predictable, more irritable, sensitive, and sometimes overwhelmed by things that never used to bother me. I've also been struggling with brain fog, forgetting simple words, losing my train of thought mid conversation, walking into rooms and completely blanking on why I'm here. I feel crazy at times. On top of that, my motivation has dropped significantly. I'm exhausted more often than not, even when I get decent sleep, and I'm noticing a decline in my libido, which has started affecting how I feel about myself and my relationship. More and more, I hear people referencing perimenopause, which I don't remember anyone discussing when I was younger. While that might provide an explanation for these changes, something about that possibility feels even more daunting. I know I'm no longer in my 20s, but I feel like I was just starting to embrace my 40s and all of the confidence that comes with knowing who you are and what you're about. I feel like the avocado that just reached peak ripeness and already I'm turning brown. I mentioned some of this to my doctor during a checkup earlier this year, and he just agreed I'm at an age where this starts to happen. He said if my symptoms worsen, we can consider medication options or hormonal therapy to manage my symptoms and sent me on my way. Now I'm left wondering, when do I pull the lever and ask for help? I'd love to hear you talk about how women can tell the difference between stress, depression, and hormonal changes during this stage of life. How do you advocate for yourself with doctors? Are there lifestyle changes, treatments, or resources that genuinely help with mood swings, brain fog, and low libido? And maybe most importantly, how do you embrace the aging process when it's unpredictable and makes you feel like you're no longer yourself? Thanks. Kenzie, what do you think about this question?
Man, it's such a good one. This is such a good question. I think that they detailed so much of their experience in such a way that I think a lot of people can relate to. So,
Yeah.
like, with the avocado analogy, like, oh, man, like, that touched me for sure. I also want to echo that, like, this listener is hearing a lot about perimenopause. I've seen it around a lot, and, like, I think that it is a great thing that it's being talked a lot more about, but I think that it is so, like, yeah, I mean, very possible that it could have been talked about before, and now we're just kind of getting to an age where people where it's kind of like I'm hearing more about it now. But I do think that it is great that more people are talking about it. But also, it's kind of like there's not too much to that's like known, I guess, or maybe just from my perspective, I don't know a ton about it. But I was thinking about how like frustrating and kind of unfair it is that it's almost kind of like you get to this point in life where you're like, all right, I'm just starting to figure out like my cycle, or I'm just starting to figure out like my hormones and all of this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, like the rug is pulled out from under you and it's completely different. It's this completely new experience that you have to kind of navigate and understand. And, like for a lot of women, when you first start getting your cycle, it's kind of like the hormones are all over the place and you're responding a little bit differently. And so this is part of that too. Like this is a transition. You're starting to feel differently. Your hormones are changing. Your body is changing. And so, I guess when you're at this point in life, you kind of feel like, okay, I've already learned how to balance a lot of this. And now I feel like I'm having to relearn. And there is a lot of frustration that comes with that.
The avocado analogy really resonated with me. I was like, "Oof, I hear you on that." Because why do they brown so fast? It's like you
Or
get this such a small window where they are like not ripe, not ripe, not ripe, and then their peak ripeness for a day, and it's the
yeah.
sorry, but I was like, I completely hear you on that. And I don't remember perimenopause being
Yeah.
discussed when I mean, my understanding of menopause was kind of like you get hot flashes, you get a little irritable, and your cycle is unpredictable. That was kind of my
Right.
understanding. And there is so much like in between. It doesn't even sound like this person in particular is having hot flashes per se. And so it just kind of resonated with me how hard it can be to identify because when you don't have like those staple symptoms that are associated with one thing and only one thing, you're right. It kind of becomes like this game of trying to figure out, am I just having a rough day? Is this stress related? Am I depressed? Or is this actually something that could be explained through perimenopause? So, just all of the questions and really kind of seeking some validation and some answers and not really feeling all that heard by her doctor, all of those things just really, I empathize with the experience. I can relate to some of the like brain fog and kind of like, getting to know yourself and then all of a sudden things change. That feels very disorienting. It feels like you can lose some confidence in yourself and who you are because the things that were once predictable now no longer are. And it's almost like you have to relearn yourself again. So just so many things that we deal with as women, and I empathize with where she is with it.
Yeah. And you brought up, and this is something that the listener had mentioned, but like, is this stress? Is it depression? Is it hormones? Is it perimenopause? Like, what is happening? What is it? And I think that it can be helpful to try to like pinpoint, like, okay, what is this exactly? But a lot of times you might not get that answer. And I think like a potentially a more helpful question to look at is like, how much is this impacting my life? Like, clearly something is off. I'm not feeling like myself. Like, this is not how I'm used to functioning. So, something is different. Something feels off. And I need to pay attention to the fact that, like, I might not know what it is that is making me feel this way, but I know that I am not feeling the way that I want to. And so, how do I address those symptoms? Like, what are some things that I can do to manage that a little bit more overall? And I also just want to highlight, like, your 40s are such an interesting time. I think that this is a time where a lot of people are carrying probably the heaviest load that they will in their lives of like, you might be going through like You might be a parent, you might be going through like the most intense time in your career. You might be taking care of your parents. Like you I think they call it, I can't remember exactly what they call it, but like that in between generation of like you're taking care of your parents and your kids. And so there is a lot of emotional, physical, mental load that's happening at this time in your life. And so I think that all of those things can kind of contribute to like, you might already just be feeling a lot of stress, burnout, feeling like you're over functioning in some ways. And then these hormonal changes are adding on probably significantly to what you're already
I was
holding.
thinking something similar, which is like the listener didn't necessarily mention if she herself is a parent or any of the things that you're describing. Like, if there is anything that she can identify that might have led to some of these changes or be causing some of like, is she experiencing more stress at work? Is she responsible for people outside of herself that maybe like, just adds a different weight? Because when we're trying to like quote unquote get to the root of things, like I do think we have to look at things like contextually, and just my MFT brain is like very systemic, which like it can be all of those things in like in combination, right? So it may not just be one thing, but you're absolutely right. You're at a stage where, career wise, it's quite possible that you're kind of at the peak, in terms of, at least in terms of where you've been thus far. That can mean additional responsibilities, that can mean added stress, that can also mean pressure to either advance or like do something different. Sometimes you feel like you kind of plateau in your career. So I wonder if any of that is happening. She mentions being in a relationship and having low libido and like how that's impacting her confidence. I think that is a very, very common one that's hard to navigate when you're in a relationship, right? Because you're used to meeting your needs, helping to meet your partner's needs in a particular way, maybe with a certain frequency, and if you don't kind of have it to give, then that can be a hard conversation. It's hard to not take that personally. It's hard to still like maintain that confidence about yourself, even if you're not able to show up in that way. And so I agree, just kind of like looking at the overall picture, it's a time of life that comes with stressors and changes and transitions. And just traditionally, we haven't, I don't think, societally done a great job at helping women to like recognize what's happening, prepare for it, anticipate it. I don't even remember a lot of conversations like with older women in my life, my mom included, about their experiences. This isn't something that we're just sitting down at dinner like, ooh, those hot flashes today. I mean, if you're around someone who's going through menopause, you might, just experience some of that. But I don't think we do a great job of talking about it, which is why the experience then feels like so new and unpredictable as we walk through it. So I'm glad I am seeing more on my social media about it. I'm seeing more on television about it. I'm seeing more ads for vitamins and things to kind of like help with it. Now, of course, some of that has to do with my age. I'm sure that's not on everyone's algorithm, but at least more information is out there?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like probably historically people talked to maybe friends about it, like people in the same stage of life, like things that they were going through. But there is a sense of feeling a little bit isolated in it because you're probably like not like you might be like, oh man, this is hitting me kind of hard. But you're probably also not going to be like, I was bawling my eyes out with, my feet in the tub, screaming at my husband and eating a carton of ice cream. Like you're probably not sharing like all of the details. And I do think that social media can be super helpful in that sense of like, there's just so much more information out there and there's a way to kind of like connect with people and be like, okay, I feel validated that other people are going through this. And yeah, but I think that once you start to get into these certain stages of life, all of a sudden you're like, why has nobody talked about this? This is so hard. And I feel like I'm crazy. Like, are other people experiencing this? Like, is this just me? So, and just some like psychoeducation around when your hormones do fluctuate or change, it impacts your serotonin and your dopamine. So that does influence your mood, your focus, your motivation, your sleep, your libido. And so those are all things that you're kind of like talking about. So just to kind of like normalize the experience and to accept and understand that you probably are going to be impacted in these areas. You are going to feel the emotions, you're not crazy. But I think a lot of times, whether you're experiencing mood shifts because of your cycle or because of perimenopause or because of menopause, like knowing and expecting these changes to come can be super helpful. So being able to say, like being able to kind of identify it and be like, this is happening because, something's happening in my body. This is changing. It can help you ground yourself a little bit so that you're not kind of like, oh, I'm getting super upset about this thing that I normally wouldn't, being able to say, oh, it's probably because of these hormone shifts or fluctuations that I'm happening. Like, let me take a deep breath. Let me pause for a second. I might still feel the emotion. I might still feel frustrated or sad or upset or whatever it is. But maybe I also can have a little bit of room for like, this probably wouldn't upset me this much if I wasn't going through this transition or if my hormones weren't being impacted in this way. So let me see if I can just like calm those feelings and those emotions a little bit and respond to them in a way that isn't just kind of like letting my feelings, my hormones, my emotions tug me around. I have a little bit more control over it too.
Understanding what's causing something doesn't necessarily change it from impacting you, but it can change how you understand what's happening, which then means in many cases you can develop a better way of like
Right.
responding and dealing with it. And I'm with you on being able to anticipate because I think for a lot of people, the if menopause was talked about, but not perimenopause, they may not have even realized until after the fact. Like, now that I think about it, that whole year or 2 prior to me actually knowing I was going through menopause, I did have a lot of, like, conflict at work, or I did find that I was, like, exhausted every day, or, yeah, I was snapping on my kids, and yes, they're at an age where, they tend to get into things, but it was different than maybe, how it was prior. So I think that hindsight sometimes can then help us to that's what that was, and then you can kind of share that so that the next woman can be a little more prepared. I do wanna talk about the doctor experience and kinda like this question of when do I pull the lever to ask for help? I mean, even just I got the impression that the listener felt a little dismissed. I don't know that that was the doctor's intention. They may have just been trying to normalize it. Like, yeah, that kind of happens. If it's causing you distress, then let's take another look at it. And I think that our experiences with doctors can just be like either be so comforting or not. And I know you've shared some of this like with your own experiences. If you feel like a doctor is not listening to you or they're not taking you seriously, it is okay to shop around. I get there are constraints like insurances and things like that. Sometimes you may be limited in terms of what the options are, but there are healthcare professionals out there who maybe take a little more personalized approach, who will listen a little bit longer, and or she did mention that it was a man. I wonder if a woman might have responded differently. So part of me just wanted to encourage her, like, it's okay if you don't feel like you're getting what you need to potentially shop around for another provider.
Yeah, and if I can add on to that too, I would also say that, and I can't remember if we've said this in a different episode, but like I think that a lot of times healthcare providers, doctors, whoever are they're going to follow your lead on some things. So like if you're kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of experiencing this, but it's fine. Like I don't really know. They're probably going to kind of be like, okay, well, like just keep monitoring it. Versus if you go in there and you say like, this is what I'm experiencing. It's severely impacting my quality of life. It's impacting my relationships. I want to figure this out and get to the bottom of it. They probably will like mimic your urgency a little bit and follow your lead on that, which I know can be frustrating. I know it's kind of like, oh, you're the doctor. I want you to tell me what's
For
normal or
sure.
not. But you do have to be your own biggest advocate. You do have to, like, they don't know your daily life. They don't know what you're experiencing and what you're going through. So you have to be very detailed. You have to kind of advocate for yourself in that way. And so if you are going into a provider and just kind of being like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't really know, they probably will brush that off a little bit more versus if you go in there and you say like, I need to get this figured out."
Yeah. No, I'm really glad you brought that up because it's kind of similar in mental health. Like if you look at the DSM-5 and the criteria for almost any mental health disorder, oftentimes like whether or not you have the disorder is based on how much distress it's causing you. Like so that's a huge factor. If you are downplaying what's happening or you're just not paying that close attention and so you're not necessarily seeing the patterns, then it can be hard to advocate for yourself because it's like, well, yeah, this happens, but I don't know how often, or like kinda sometimes, so I find documenting patterns and your experiences can be incredibly helpful because you will forget if your cycle was a little late that month. Like, write that down, keep track of that. If you notice that, your moods were shifting and it was like 4 days out of a week, like, note that, because we want to know, is that changing from like 1 day a week to 4 days to 7 days a week? These are things that sometimes you might not notice just like in isolated cases, but as you start documenting, then you start to see a little bit of a pattern. And then you can take that with you to your healthcare provider and say, like, okay, I've been tracking for the past 3 months and like, this is what I'm noticing. I don't think all of these are isolated. Can we look at some potential options? And if anyone's looking for a good doctor, I have a good one in Pennsylvania who just opened her practice. Journey Well MD. I'm going to do a little plug, not an ad, but a doctor who will like take what you're saying seriously and cares about women's health, Dr. Toya Gordon. So just a little plug there. But yeah, document what you're experiencing so that they can best help you. You know yourself best, but they know the medical profession. So then you can bring that to them and discuss what your options are.
Yeah, I think that that is a great suggestion to document. And I also like what you said about, because that was something that I was thinking of too. When we're doing diagnosing in for mental health, or when we're thinking about what a client like might be experiencing, we do look at how it's impacting their life, the distress, the distress that it might be causing. And so this listener said, like, when do I ask for help? And I think that that's something important to pay attention to. It's just kind of like, all right, it's frustrating. I've got these like mood swings that are happening, but it's manageable. It's not, it's something that I feel like I can manage on my own. Okay. But the other, the flip side of that, of like, when do I ask for help? Is it impacting your day-to-day functioning? Is it impacting your quality of life, your relationships, your work, your relationship with yourself? These different areas and aspects of your life, if it is having a negative impact on that, or if you feel like it really impacting your quality of life, that is a time that you kind of like, you do take it seriously. You don't just push it down or brush it off and be like, I don't know, I guess everybody goes through this or experiences it. Like, it's okay to say, this is really not how I want to live my life. And I would like some additional tools, resources, support to be able to manage this a little bit better to improve my quality
You
of
don't
life.
have to wait until you're suffering to do something about it, right? Like, there's no awards for sticking it out and like, I made it all no, you don't have to wait until you are completely overwhelmed or completely burnt out or just, so stressed. You can ask for help a little bit sooner because there are different types of support that we can offer women during this stage. Not everything just means, jumping to medication, although that can be an option. But there are things that you can potentially do, as like half steps, if you don't like wait until you're completely suffering. So I wanted to just share some of the like common treatment options that come up. Of course, there's like antidepressants and and anxiety medications that can just help with the symptoms, right? So if you are just having like, depressive moods or episodes or just really heightened anxiety, sometimes that can be managed with medication. Sometimes sleep support, depending on if you're having a hard time sleeping, getting to sleep, staying asleep, strength training and exercise. I know we always talk about like moving your body, your diet, your sleep, and reducing stress, but like all of those things really, really make a difference. And so sometimes even being more intentional about those things, prioritizing them differently, because maybe in your 20s, you could get away with skipping, your sleep and you could just kind of function. And now it may not be the same thing. It may be like, no, I need to go to bed at this time or else like I'm not able to function. So maybe being more boundary around prioritizing those things can be helpful. Reducing alcohol, looking at your nutrition. Sometimes there are foods that we're taking in that are just not helpful to our bodies, like, based on what we're experiencing. Of course, therapy, talking about it, not like holding it all in, reducing your stress. Pelvic floor therapy was one that came up because sometimes there can be like pain with sex or discomfort. Supplements. So I mentioned like vitamins and things. There are things on the market to kind of help with this. And hormone therapy. I know that that's one that is like common. It's commonly associated with menopause. There's mixed information and research out there about it. Some people have become very much afraid of it because of some of that research. But it is, from my understanding, a very individual thing that you really need to discuss with your doctor to even see if you would be a good candidate for it. Like to make sure that it's appropriate for you and the symptoms that you're experiencing. But there is a lot that we can do. Like I just kind of ran off a list. And so you can start small and kind of see how that helps. And then if it feels like you need to escalate, then you can do that as well. So there are things to the question about, are there actually things that help? Yes, there are things that help, but you're your own individual. And so you're going to have to like advocate for what you need. There's not a one fix all for every person.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you mentioned that, like what commonly is used, because it gives a sense of control too. This is not all outside of your control. There are things that you have in your control to explore that you can start doing now, like that in your day to day, and that you also can bring up to your doctor or to somebody that you're working with to kind of say like, okay, what does this all entail, and figure out a plan that does work best for you to navigate these symptoms and to enhance that quality of life. Something else that I had thought about was, and I think that it goes hand in hand with this idea of like what is in your control. I'm thinking about the last part of their question of like, how do you embrace the aging process when it's unpredictable and makes you feel like you're no longer yourself? I think that an aspect of this is acceptance. You are stepping into a new stage in your life. And instead of maybe trying to hold on to what was, or, what, this the past like experience has looked like for you, kind of accepting that like, okay, I'm going through perimenopause potentially, right? And I am experiencing these symptoms, and this is something that's going to come up. So I need to learn how to work with it. I need to learn how to work with myself, how to take care of myself, how to manage some of these symptoms. But I also, when doing some research for this question, something that came up that I really, really liked was like, this is a really beautiful stage for a lot of women who start to adjust how they view beauty, femininity, empowerment, like their worth, and just kind of empowering this listener of like stepping into seeing yourself for how much you have done, how much you've accomplished, how much strength you have, how much resilience you have, and almost trying to incorporate, empower, identify with this like really beautiful stage of womanhood of kind of like, I am feeling like I know myself and I feel confident in who I am. And yes, this is an adjustment and this is hard, but like, where's it going to bring me to? Like, what's the kind of person that I want to be, or how I can use this situation?
I really like that. I really like, because in a lot of ways you've paid your dues. It's kind of like, yeah, I'm ready to be done with. And yeah, we didn't. The letter didn't touch on this, so I'm not going to go into too much depth. But it can also bring up feelings around being a parent. The person didn't even mention if they are a parent, and so I don't know how they feel about the thought of not being
Yeah,
able to have more children. And so like that can bring up a lot of thoughts and feelings of like, am I really done? Am I
sure.
okay with it? And so that's like a whole separate layer of it. But you're right. It like everything in life, there are stages, there are transitions, and sometimes we can
Yeah.
hold on to the previous stage because it's familiar and it's like kind of what we've come to know and gotten used to and learned to embrace. But life is about change. Like life is things are constantly changing. And like it, not that there's like a key or a trick to life, but I think the key is figuring out how to navigate those changes as opposed to resisting them. The more you resist, the more like distress you find yourself in, as opposed to acceptance and embracing. And then it kind of opens up the door in terms of the positive things that can come along with it. So I like that framing, and probably a nice place to kind of close.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And thank you for this question. I think it's such a good one to bring up, and wishing you the best in navigating this. You can have that hope and step into this new chapter. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy all of the time, or that it doesn't come with its challenges, but just keeping that perspective in mind too, I think is
If you'd
helpful.
like to hear our thoughts on a topic that matters to you, email your question to info@askatherapistpod.com. We'd also like to hear your thoughts on today's topic. What resonated, what didn't, and what did we miss? If you have advice for our listener, please share it. You may just hear your feedback on a future episode. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at askatherapist_pod. Emails and DMs are always welcome. Also, if you'd like to connect with me or Kenzie and learn more about the services we offer in our private practices, check the show notes for ways to reach us directly. With that, we're signing off. Thanks for listening, and remember, don't wing it, just ask a therapist.
That's it for today's episode. We hope it gave you something to reflect on, or maybe even that aha moment.
If so, you know the drill. Rate, review, subscribe, and don't forget to text it to the group chat. Remember, sharing is caring.
If you have a question you want us to tackle, big or small, we want to hear it.
Email us at info@askatherapistpod.com or slide into our DMs on Instagram at askatherapist_pod.
You bring the questions.
We'll bring the insight and probably a metaphor or two.
This is Ask a Therapist.